In Season 0, Storm was pretty garbage. Ella and Hawkeye pretty much reigned supreme, and the skies were a rough place to be when you can just get 2-tapped by Hela or 1-tapped by Hawkeye. But although we are only a couple days into Season 1, it is looking like Storm is going to become a pretty strong pick for this season. You would have to be completely blind to not notice how unbelievably strong Storm has become since the new patch. Storm has been absolutely decimating teams in pretty much every rank so far this season. In this video, you're going to learn everything you need to know to carry your games on Storm, whether you're stuck in the metal ranks or grinding for a top 500 spot. I'm going to have timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a specific part of the video, but let's go ahead and get started with her basic kit and abilities. So as I'm sure you've already noticed, Storm is one of 2 characters in the game that can free fly, the other being Iron Man, which is both a strength and a weakness because it means that she can maneuver to pretty much wherever she wants. But it also means that a lot of times she's just going to be hanging in the air, and it can make it really easy for characters like Hela or Hawkeye to just snipe you out of the sky. So Storm's primary fire is a piercing wind blade. She has 12 shots. It's a pretty quick moving projectile, and it does pretty decent damage, even at pretty considerable range. And importantly, because not a lot of people actually know this, her projectiles actually pierce, which means you can hit as many opponents as you want, as long as they're all lined up in a row. It's also worth noting that Storm's projectiles cannot headshot, so you should really just be aiming for body shots to make sure that you're hitting your shots more consistently. Storm's right-click Bolt Rush is a charge-up hit scan attack that deals pretty significant damage. This attack is also piercing, which means it will hit absolutely anyone who's caught in it as long as they're in a line. It's also worth noting that while this attack does reach pretty far, it actually doesn't travel infinitely like her primary. So if you are far enough away, you will not hit your opponent. While it does reach pretty far, just don't expect to be able to hit people from across the map with it. Okay, now pay attention because this is the most important part of Storm's kit. Storm's shift is weather control. She can either use wind to boost speed or thunder to boost damage. These give Storm a 16% speed or damage boost, and her allies an 8% speed or damage boost if they're within the radius. It's also important to note that Storm's weather control radius is actually a sphere. So if you're flying really high above your team, you're going to notice that radius is going to shrink, and you're not going to have all of your teammates in that radius. This is where things get weird and complicated. Storm's E is her goddess boost, which just boosts the effects of her weather control and also gives them an additional effect. If you boost wind, it's going to give Storm an additional 30% movement boost, her allies a 12% movement boost, and it's also going to slow enemies caught in the radius by 15%. If you boost damage, on the other hand, it's going to give Storm a 30% damage boost and her allies a 12% boost, but it's also going to have the additional effect of doing a 35 damage Thunderbolt to all enemies within the radius every 2 seconds, which on its own isn't a lot, but it very quickly adds up and is a pretty devastating ability if used correctly. Storm's ultimate ability is the Omega Hurricane. It has this pretty long charge up time, but then you can choose to drop it pretty much wherever you want. It's going to deal a pretty devastating amount of damage, especially to squishies, and it's also going to suck them in a little bit. It's active for 5 seconds, during which you get up to 700 total health that lasts a little bit after the ult ends as well. You're also completely unstoppable once the ult has started up, so you can't be CC'd by anything. Finally, Storm's only team up currently is with Thor, which gives her access to a new ability, Charged Gale. This attack is very similar to her right click. You charge it up to do a little hit scan burst, but it also bounces between enemies, dealing, I think, 50 damage per hit, and it can bounce up to 3 times. So you'll want to use it when enemies are a little bit grouped up, very similar to Moon Knight's projectiles. It's also worth noting that this attack does have limited range like her right click, but it also has noticeably longer range than the right click. So where a right click might miss at some ranges, the C is still going to hit. That's all for Storm's kit though, so now let's talk about how to effectively use it in game. A lot of new players fall into this trap of flying as high as they can and spamming her projectiles at whatever moves, but this is a complete waste of Storm's potential. Storm is one of the only duelists in the game that can also provide immense utility for her team. Using Storm's weather control and goddess boost correctly are the most important things you need to be doing in order to provide your team value. The speed boost is nice, but it's really only useful if you're taxiing your teammates to and from the point, or if you're using it to reposition, or if you need to quickly dodge projectiles or seek some cover. But when it comes down to it, you should really be saving Goddess Boost solely for the Thunder mode. The damage boost that you and your allies receive is pretty significant, and you also have the added bonus of doing damage passively to everyone who's around you. Using Goddess Boost with Thunder is the most value you can provide to your team. So you kind of want to be using it as often as possible, but you also want to make sure to use it when your team is advancing and grouped up. Storm does a lot of damage, like seriously a lot. If you use your cooldowns effectively and position well, you can be charging an ult basically every single fight. Storm's ultimate isn't exactly tricky to use. You kind of just drop it and then follow your opponents. But you should be careful when you use it and which targets that you're choosing. At the same time, though, don't make it more complicated than it is. It's an AoE, so drop it on enemies that are grouped up, but prioritize squishies because although it does do pretty decent damage, you're probably not going to kill a tank unless they're already pretty low. So you really want to target squishies unless maybe you see a tank that's on really low health. Your ult does take you to 700 health, which is a lot, and you're also immune to CCs during this time, but you can be killed through it if you take enough damage, so maybe don't ult if you're looking down like a Punisher ult, or don't ult if there's an active Scarlet Witch ult and you're going to get one shot. Pearl also does have about a 2-second startup time during which you can be killed or stunned like normal. But this isn't really that much of a problem because you can pretty much ult from a completely safe position and still choose to drop it wherever you want. You have a lot of freedom in choosing where you drop this ult. Okay, let's talk matchups. Storm's best matchups are pretty obvious. Grounded melee characters like Captain America, Wolverine, Black Panther, and Magic are going to struggle against Storm the most simply because she can kind of just choose to outrange them. And the characters that you struggle against the most are also pretty obvious. Hawkeye, Hela, Punisher, even Black Widow can pose a pretty significant threat to Storm if you're not careful. There's also this weird gray area of characters like Psylocke and Spider-Man who could actually be a very real threat to Storm if they close the distance. But you can also just save your E for the Thunder boost as a defensive option once they do close the distance to just make them get away from you. So maybe the matchup is a little bit closer to even. I'm not exactly sure yet. We'll see it more as the season plays out. I want to end this video by showing you clips from some actual matches. All of the following clips come from my streams here on YouTube. I'm live almost every night. So if you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'd love to see you in the next stream. Hear them like at all? Execute. Nah, I got it. By the eye of Agamotto. Ults, I don't care, man.
Wow, 4 in a row.
Fucking job, good fucking job.
He sounded like he was stroking it there, bro. One thing I love to do with Storm's ult is drop my ult in the backline to force support ults, and then just pull myself back to a safe position. And once their ult expires, I push in with my team by amping the damage boost for the lightning bonus, and you can kind of just shred them once they come through the choke. That's good for us too. Here I miss all my shots, but just my sheer presence alone was enough to win the fight for my team. Fruit's one on point. Dead. Oh my god, we're just better than them, really. When you
Only 60 seconds left.
Feel the wrath of the goddess!
Double KO.
Wait, did you see it? A small apparition traveled across the screen. Its intentions are unknown, but they are assuredly malevolent in nature. Like and subscribe, or else this wretched spirit will haunt you for the rest of your days. Wait just a moment. Actually, I think that might be the ghost of Jimmy Carter. Rest in peace, Jimbo.
have to get back here and do it. I want their rocket first, I think. Ooh, owned. Hey, going with my ult here. Break the Loki things. Oh my god, it's fat.
Don't let anything stand in your way.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man! So long, turret.
You better test this out. Double KO.
The wrath of the goddess!
Oh. All right.